Imagine this. And what if an act as simple as writing your date of birth could become a key to unlocking a new relationship with prosperity? It may sound strange, even too simple to be true, but according to the metaphysical teachings of Connie Mendez, this small act hides a much deeper meaning than most people imagine. The idea is to write your date of birth 18 times, not as a mechanical movement, nor as an empty ritual, but as a practice meant to synchronize your energy, strengthen your spiritual identity, and reprogram your subconscious mind. And today you'll discover why something so ordinary could influence the way money and abundance begin to manifest in your life. It all starts with a detail that almost no one questions: your date of birth. For many, it's nothing more than a combination of numbers used to fill out forms or remember birthdays. But from a metaphysical perspective, it represents a unique energetic code, a kind of vibrational fingerprint that reflects the exact moment you arrived on this plane. Connie Mendez believed that every human being has their own frequency that can be consciously aligned with universal abundance. Your birth would not have been an accident of the calendar, but rather the convergence of forces and energies that mark the beginning of an unrepeatable story. It is, so to speak, the energetic signature with which you entered the game of life. When you write that date consciously, you are not only recalling a personal fact, you are reaffirming who you are, recognizing your existence, and strengthening the bond between your essence and the universe. It's like giving your mind a password that had remained forgotten for years. However, I want you to break out of autopilot for a moment. Stop just watching this video. Close your eyes for 3 seconds and think about the exact day you came into this world. Billions of people have been born on this planet, but there has never been anyone with the same story, the same energy, or the same frequency as you. Maybe you had never thought about it. And if you've made it this far, I want to invite you to do a small symbolic act. Write in the comments, "I accept prosperity in my life." It will be a way to mark this moment and to declare that you are willing to open yourself to a new possibility. Because what comes next might be that you look at your date of birth with new eyes. Connie Mendez's metaphysics was never intended to remain in complex theories or hard to understand concepts. Her approach was practical, to understand the invisible laws that govern reality and use them in favor of our daily lives. From that perspective, prosperity does not depend solely on effort, luck, or external circumstances. It arises when our thoughts, emotions, and beliefs vibrate at the same frequency as abundance. Because what you hold with conviction ends up shaping the experience you live. That's why writing your date of birth 18 times is not about birth times. Writing your date of birth is intention. It's a way of telling your subconscious, I recognize my origin, I accept my worth, and I choose to open myself to a more abundant life. It's much more useful than spending 20 minutes watching cat videos. Those have their charm too, but an inevitable question arises. Why exactly 18 times? Within many spiritual and numerological traditions, the number 18 is associated with prosperity, expansion, and good fortune. Its vibration combines two powerful energies. The one which represents the beginning, creation, and the drive to move forward, and the 8 associated with infinite flow, wealth, and constant abundance. I see together, they form the symbol of a new beginning connected with prosperity, a rebirth both financial and energetic. By repeating your date of birth 18 times, you would be integrating that vibration into your mind and sending a repeated message to your subconscious. Since my origin, I am aligned with abundance. And here an interesting detail appears. The subconscious mind doesn't really distinguish between what you constantly repeat and what it considers an established truth. That's why it starts to reorganize thoughts, emotions, and perceptions to adapt to that new internal programming. Although this practice is often associated with the esoteric, there is an aspect that finds some support in neuroscience. The brain responds with great efficiency to repetition, especially when there is focused attention and stimuli loaded with emotional meaning. Every time you consciously write your date of birth, you're not just moving a pencil across paper, you're reinforcing neural connections related to your identity, your self-esteem, and your expectations about life. Over time, that repetition can change the way you interpret your surroundings. You start to notice opportunities that you used to overlook. You find solutions where you only saw problems before, and you develop greater creativity to generate resources and attract new economic opportunities. Now then, how do you carry out this practice? Find a quiet place where you can stay for a few minutes without interruptions. Take a sheet of paper and a pencil. Before writing, close your eyes and take several deep breaths. With each inhale, imagine you're absorbing positive energy. With each exhale, release fear, doubt, and worry. When you feel calm, write your date of birth for the first time. Do it slowly with attention and respect as if you were drawing an important symbol. As you do it, remember that your life arrives. It came into the world accompanied by possibilities, growth, and abundance. Then write the date again, and once more, until you complete the 18 repetitions. In each one of them, strengthen a clear intention. I was born to prosper. Abundance flows into my life with ease and harmony. Let each number stop being just a simple figure and become a silent reminder of the potential that has always been within you. And what is the ideal time to do this exercise? Although you can do it at any time of the day, there are two moments that seem to have a special impact. The first few minutes after waking up and the last few before going to sleep. It's no coincidence. When you first open your eyes, your mind hasn't yet been invaded by worries, news, social media, or the endless to-do list. During these minutes, there's a kind of mental silence that makes it easier to concentrate and allows new ideas to come in with much less resistance. But there's an even more interesting moment, the minutes right before sleep. As the body begins to relax, the brain gradually reduces its activity and enters states associated with alpha and theta waves. Phases related to imagination, creativity, and increased mental receptivity. It is precisely in that state where many visualization, meditation, and mental programming techniques are most effective. And here comes a detail that few people consider. Your subconscious never sleeps. While you rest, it continues processing emotions, memories, associations, and information accumulated throughout the day. That's why what you feed your mind before sleeping usually keeps working throughout the night. Now think for a moment. How many people go to bed watching negative news, reading arguments on social media, or worrying about unpaid bills? Without realizing it, they program their minds to keep living exactly the same reality the next day. This ritual will aim to do exactly the opposite. Before you close your eyes, choose to plant a different idea. The idea of a life connected to prosperity. And even though it may seem like an insignificant gesture, small actions repeated with intention often produce much greater transformations than we imagine. But there's something even more important than the schedule: consistency. We live in a time where everyone wants immediate results. You install an app and expect it to work in seconds. You make an affirmation once and expect the universe to respond before breakfast. The mind, however, works differently. Deep beliefs were built over years through constant repetition. That's why you also need repetition for them to be replaced. Every time you write your date of birth with full awareness, you're strengthening a new mental association. You're telling your brain over and over again that your origin is connected with growth, abundance, and possibilities. And the more you repeat that association, the more natural it starts to seem to you. As the days go by, something interesting happens. You start to surprise yourself by thinking differently. You stop focusing only on what's missing, and you begin to notice resources, opportunities, and ideas that previously seemed invisible. Not because the universe has suddenly changed, but because the way you see reality begins to change. And that can change much more than you imagine. But there is another ingredient that multiplies the effect of any conscious practice: emotion. Emotions are the subconscious's favorite language, much more powerful than words. You can repeat a phrase 1,000 times, but if it doesn't generate any emotion, it will barely leave a mark. On the other hand, a single idea accompanied by intense emotion can stay with you for years. That's why this exercise isn't just about writing a date, it's about connecting with it. As you write, imagine the peace of living without fear of money. Visualize how new opportunities come to you, how you solve problems easily, and how you experience a deep sense of security and confidence. Allow yourself to feel it before you see it. That detail completely changes the experience. Because the subconscious responds much more to what it feels than to what has happened. Feeling of gratitude. Along with the emotion, another force appears that many spiritual traditions consider fundamental: gratitude. Most people only express gratitude after receiving something, but numerous metaphysical schools propose doing exactly the opposite. To give thanks beforehand, not as an act of naivety, but as a declaration of trust. When you give thanks for something that hasn't arrived yet, you're stopping acting from a place of scarcity and starting to think about achieving it. Gratitude is a silent way of affirming, I know abundance exists and I allow it to be part of my experience. And that internal change gradually modifies your emotional vibration. Interestingly, when a person maintains a more optimistic and receptive state of mind for weeks, their behavior also changes. He speaks differently, makes different decisions, notices opportunities he used to ignore, and dares to do things he used to avoid. And that's when something fascinating starts to happen. Life seems to respond differently. Maybe an unexpected opportunity appears. Maybe a job opportunity, a new client, a collaboration, an unexpected gift, or an investment that comes up almost by chance. Or a synchronicity so unlikely that it makes you wonder if it was really just a coincidence. And this is where a concept that has sparked enormous interest in recent years comes in. Reality might seem much more flexible than we think. Some interpretations inspired by quantum physics suggest that conscious attention plays an important role in how we experience the possibilities that exist around us. From this symbolic perspective, each thought held with emotion acts as a direction that guides our perception towards certain experiences. Imagine that reality is a vast garden filled with invisible seeds. Each emotion is water, each thought is fertilizer. Each conscious action is a new seed. What you nurture ends up growing, and what you ignore ends up drying up. That's why writing your date of birth 18 times with intention is like planting an immense garden. It's not about the person, it's about the immense garden. And what if reality is an immense garden about who you are and the reality you decide to build? But there is a silent enemy that can ruin that whole process. Limiting beliefs? Inherited phrases like, money is only for a few, I will never get ahead, everything in life is too hard, or I wasn't born to prosper. They settle in the mind for years and start to guide our decisions without us realizing it. They are invisible programs, and the most dangerous thing is that they seem true because we've been repeating them for too long. This exercise is meant to snap you out of that autopilot mode. Each repetition slowly replaces the old story with a new narrative. My origin is connected with abundance. I deserve to prosper. Opportunities come into my life. Money can flow naturally. When this new identity begins to consolidate, your way of walking, talking, deciding, and acting also changes. And many times that's where the real transformation begins. Because maybe the biggest obstacle was never in the outside world. Maybe it was always in the story you kept repeating inside your head. And if you decide to walk this path, you don't have to do it alone. Sharing the experience with other people can strengthen your commitment and keep your motivation alive. Imagine a small group that does this exercise every night, and then they share the synchronicities, opportunities, or internal changes they start to experience. That shared energy creates an environment where abundance stops seeming like a fantasy, and it starts to feel like a real possibility. And sometimes it's enough to change the energy of just one person for their whole environment to start transforming as well. But here's something that many people overlook. When people talk about prosperity, almost everyone thinks only about money. And that could be the first mistake. Because true abundance is much broader than the balance of a bank account. There's little point in accumulating wealth if you live with anxiety, surrounded by conflict, or feeling a constant emptiness. True prosperity is a holistic state that is reflected in all areas of life. And that's precisely where these kinds of practices take on a much deeper meaning. When you train your mind to recognize abundance, you don't just change your relationship with money. You also start to relate differently to your health, your emotions, the people around you, and the opportunities that appear on your path. It's like changing the frequency on a radio. The station was always there, but until you tune in to the right frequency, all you hear is noise. And the funny thing is that often the first changes don't come in the form of money. They come as a sense of peace you haven't felt in years, like a conversation that opens an unexpected door, like a brilliant idea that appears while you're walking, like a person who arrives at just the right moment, or like a coincidence so strange that it seems to have been designed especially for you. And then you start to wonder, are they really coincidences? Or am I simply seeing possibilities that my mind used to ignore? Whatever the answer is, something starts to change inside you. Because abundance isn't just what you have. It's also the way you experience life. And when that feeling changes, everything around you slowly starts to rearrange itself. Now, there's a fundamental aspect that can't be overlooked: patience. We live in a culture obsessed with immediacy. We want quick results, instant changes, and immediate answers. If something takes more than a few days, we think it doesn't work. However, nature has never followed that pace. A tree doesn't grow overnight. A seed needs time to break through the soil. And the same thing happens with any deep transformation. Although some people claim to have experienced surprising changes in a short time, many others describe a gradual, almost imperceptible process, which they only understand when they look back and realize how much their life has changed. First, an opportunity appears, then an unexpected solution, and later, a new source of income. Later on, a key person. And when you put all those pieces together, you realize that the change started long before you were aware of it. That's why faith plays such an important role. Not blind or naive faith, but the trust to keep moving forward, even when you still can't see the final outcome. Every time you write your date of birth with intention, you're reinforcing an inner decision. The decision to stop identifying with scarcity and start building an identity based on prosperity. And even though some days you don't notice anything at all, the inner work continues to unfold, because the most important transformations almost always happen in silence. There is a well-known saying that bamboo spends years growing underground before appearing on the surface. And when it finally emerges, it seems to do so suddenly. But the truth is that it spent a long time developing invisible roots. Maybe the change you're looking for works in a similar way. Maybe it's already happening even if you can't see it yet. And that possibility alone is reason enough to keep going. Throughout time, thousands of people have shared experiences related to visualization techniques, affirmation, and mental programming. They report that they began to receive unexpected job opportunities, new clients, financial improvements, gifts, promotions, or solutions to problems they had been struggling with for years. Others talk about a peace they had never felt before, or an inner confidence that ended up driving the changes they thought would never happen. They are conclusive proof, and each person will have to draw their own conclusions, but all those stories share one thing in common. First, the mind changed. Then the reality they experienced changed. And that's an idea that Connie Mendez constantly repeated in her teachings. The real limit is usually not on the outside. It's usually inside, in the beliefs we accept without questioning them, in the fears we inherit, in the phrases we repeat since childhood until they become our truth. When those barriers begin to disappear, many of the limits that seemed unmovable also disappear. And at the end of each session, there is a gesture that can make a huge difference: gratitude. Don't end the exercise by simply leaving the paper on the table. Pause for a few seconds, breathe, and give thanks. Be grateful for the chance and for life itself, or for having made it this far, for the lessons you have received. And above all, be grateful for what you still can't touch, but that you choose to believe is already on its way. This small act has enormous psychological power because it forces your mind to abandon the feeling of lack and adopt a completely different attitude. That of someone who trusts, that of someone who expects good things, that of someone who stops desperately chasing abundance because they start to feel abundant from within. And when that feeling becomes an everyday thing, something extraordinary happens. Prosperity stops seeming like a miracle. It starts to become your new normal. You're not surprised when opportunities arise. You no longer think that luck always favors others. You start to assume that you can also be part of that flow. And that simple belief changes the way you approach life. You speak differently. You make different decisions. You dare to do things you used to avoid. And that new version of yourself ends up generating completely different results. But maybe the most powerful effect doesn't fall solely on you. Emotions are also contagious. The energy with which you face life influences your family, your friends, and everyone around you. An optimistic person inspires. A confident person transmits calm. A person who lives from abundance invites others to question their own limitations without even realizing it. And your transformation can become the starting point for the person who transforms you. And so we reach the end of this journey. Now you understand that writing your date of birth 18 times is not simply about repeating some numbers on a piece of paper. It represents a symbolic act of reconnection with yourself, a silent declaration that you choose to leave behind a mindset of scarcity to make room for new possibilities. It's a way to remind yourself that your story isn't written forever and that you can always choose a new narrative. If you decide to put this exercise into practice, do it with authenticity. Adapt it your way, make it your own. Allow it to become a moment of calm, reflection, and conscious intention. And watch closely what happens in the following weeks. Maybe your circumstances will change, maybe your opportunities will change, or maybe something even more important will happen. That you change. When a person deeply changes the way they think, feel, and act, they often discover that the reality that seemed impossible was always waiting for them to change as well. Because in the end, prosperity doesn't start in your pocket. It starts in the mind. And every great external change usually begins with an invisible decision made in silence. Maybe that decision can start today.